I'm going to just go through these in some form of order, like fiction, nonfiction, and maybe try to categorize them. But it's roughly 25 books, I think. I think I'm at 25. And I read a lot this year. I was in a cycling accident and I read about a month more than I normally would have if you combine the time. I was pretty much bedridden or at least sitting still a lot of the time. One thing I do want to say right off the top is this is not one of those quick little here's my top 5 books of the year things. This is not what this is. I'm going to show you a bunch of books. I'm going to tell you why I like them. It's not for the faint of heart, but if you like reading and if you're interested in the things that I'm reading, there's a link in the description to each of the books to make it easy on you if you want to grab those. And I guess without further ado, here we go. The first book I want to show you is one that I definitely have not finished reading, and I haven't been using it in a way of read this book from beginning to end. It is big. It is a hardcover. It's pretty old, and I think it keeps getting revised, but it's Bartlett's Familiar Quotations. This is a really cool book. In a day and age where you can Google or chat GPT quotes, there's just something about a giant book with thousands of quotations by the person's name. So if I want to flip through here, there's obviously an index. But if I want to know what Martin Scorsese has ever said that's interesting, I can go to his name and his most famous quotes are there. It's amazing. I've used it a ton in writing. I've used it a ton in thinking about stuff or wondering what someone else has said about a subject or a feeling or whatever. And can't recommend it enough. I'm going to take you straight from that into fiction. I read more fiction this year than I ever have. I've always read nonfiction heavily, but man, fiction has been really speaking to me in a more profound way about realities and knowledge than even some of the nonfiction that I love. I love learning, and I've always approached learning through nonfiction, people who are experts in subjects, but I'm starting to really love the same process and appreciation of that fact and how you can learn through novels and nonfiction. And it's been really beautiful. So the first set of books here that I'll show you are what I would say like modern prophetic books. They're old books. A lot of them are classics. Most of you have read them, but I didn't grow up in a reading family. My school never pushed literature, and I'm discovering a lot of classics for the first time. And they're really profound. I think they speak to our current situation, our current climate, and they're really wonderful. The first one is The Handmaid's Tale. This is Margaret Atwood. I can't say enough about this. It is a horrifyingly good book. It's a book where, as you get through the pages, you see how crazy it is that she wrote this in the 80s, early, mid 80s, I believe, and how on the edge of so many things in this we actually might be as a nation or as a world. And yeah, can't recommend it enough. The next is The Machine Stops by E.M. Forster. This was written in 1909, and that is freaking crazy because when you read it, it feels like an allegory for artificial intelligence. There's a machine under the ground that all the humans are controlled by, and it sustains them, and they don't really do anything. They sit around in their rooms and the machine cares for them. It's such a crazy story. A really quick read, really good book. My favorite nonfiction I read this year, hands down, is one of the most famous books ever written. And again, I had never read it. I might read this every year. Fahrenheit 451. This is Ray Bradbury. I bought all of his books because this book's amazing. And I just was like, I got to read everything the guy's ever written. So I plan on doing that. It's phenomenal. The premise is you can't have books in your home because you can't have your own ideas. And yeah, it's fascinating. Fascinating book. Next up is a classic. It's less of the prophetic classic book about what the future might look like. It is The Catcher in the Rye. This is a wild read. This is one of the weirdest books I've ever read. The style is crazy. I'm still not sure what I think about it. other than I loved it, but I don't know what I think about it. Like I haven't figured it out. I feel like I need to read it again. It's just a guy, and he just never stops moving and talking, and it is the wildest. It's the wildest book I think I've read of this type. I don't even know what the type is. It's obviously a fiction. It's a novel. It's a huge classic, but yeah, it's wild. And then 2 modern novels. I didn't read a lot of new stuff at all. This isn't one of those best of 2025 videos. I read old books all the time. I really liked this Claire Keegan book, Small Things Like These. I read this right before Christmas. It's a real small read. It's about an Irish town, and it has a really cool subject. I won't spoil it for you, but it's just about a family, a dad, how they choose to help someone. It's a really beautiful book. And then my wife told me to read this book. At first I was like, I don't want to read this book. I don't want to read like a romance book. It's not my thing. I'll watch a chick flick. I have no shame. But with books, I tend to just not get into like relationship fiction or whatever. But this book was amazing. Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. Did not see the end of this book coming. It's almost like it ended twice, and both endings were crazy. Brilliantly written, really good. I've seen a bunch of people say this is their favorite book of the year, and it is a new book. I do think it came out this year. Let's jump from that into some other genre. Let me decide. These books are maybe in a memoir category. They're a little all over the place. One of them has a lot of memoir in it, also has short stories, whatever. I'm trying to categorize them as best as I can. These are a little hard to pin down. I found this book, like most books I love, in another book. If you love a book and someone references a book, buy those books. This is one of those that happened. It is absolutely phenomenal. It is Winston Churchill, Painting as a Pastime. Yes, this is the Winston Churchill, like, the guy. World War Winston Churchill. He was a painter. I had no idea he was creative or a painter. And this is a wonderful, easy to read, single train of thought is how it reads, like a diary about why painting is helpful to him, how creativity helps his mind, how he approaches it, what he thinks about art. It was really cool. One of the coolest little books I've ever discovered, and I had no idea it existed. It's even bound beautifully. It's great. Wonderful book. This book is my favorite book that I read. Hands down, nothing is close to how much I loved this book. I have bought many copies of it and sent them to friends, highlighted with notes. It is David McCullough, History Matters. I am in love with this man. I wish he was my grandpa. Basically, David McCullough is a prolific nonfiction writer, a biographer. He helped with Ken Burns' The Civil War, things like that. He basically gave speeches a lot. He wrote letters, and he had some essays, and all that stuff was scattered, and it never really fit in any of his works. So his daughter put it all together in this book. I love this book. This is an all-time top 10 favorite book right now for me, period. Like, all-time top 10 favorite book. Reread C.S. Lewis, A Grief Observed. This is a book about death. It's a book about loss. C.S. Lewis is prolific. He's one of my favorite writers and thinkers ever. And I think that's a really important book. If any of you have been through anything hard, if you've lost a loved one, that's a really wonderful kind of introspective, observational book by him about going through that loss. This book is really good, and I was surprised by it. I had never read To Kill a Mockingbird, so I'd never really known anything about Harper Lee, but I've heard about To Kill a Mockingbird my whole life because I'm from Alabama, and I read that a couple years ago. All-time great book, all-time favorite for me. This came out this year, I believe, The Land of Sweet Forever. This is a book of published short stories where she wrote for different magazines. It's also full of essays. It has other stories. It has a really wonderful introduction, which kind of teaches you about the stories you're going to read and how she was forming her voice and characters. And a lot of the characters from, say, To Kill a Mockingbird, you see them being developed. They have different names. It is wonderful. It has some really profound moments where she's talking in these letters or in these stories about coming back home from New York, back to Alabama, and having to deal with the racism or the feelings of racism in her family. And it's just really moving and profound. She's awesome, and I can't recommend that read enough. Another one I've always wanted to read is Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. This is essentially an essay, and this particular publishing of this essay is beautiful. It's put together by Jessica Helfand during the pandemic, and this essay really grabbed her in the lockdown and the solitude, but it is like masterfully put together, beautifully done, the typesets and things. I don't know, it's just a work of art. The book itself is just fantastic. It's not as quick of a read as you would think, being that small. It's some heavy material. It's written in 1840 something, so you have to get in the flow of some of the words, some of the language. But man, I highlighted this to death. It is profound. I really love it. It's like early self-help, but that's not what it is. That's not why he wrote it. And so some of it feels slightly dated. Some of it might feel like I don't really agree with this train of thought about myself or humanity, but most of everything in it is really great. Next up is G.K. Chesterton, Heretics. This is a really cool book where Chesterton is speaking to the philosophers of the day. He's speaking to people and their thoughts about the human condition and all these events going on and challenging some of the mindsets. It's really wonderful. Chesterton is a profound writer. I have some of his fiction that I really want to get into, but I'm pretty new to him. I discovered him by way of C.S. Lewis talking about him, and I think that book was amazing. This next book is overtly Christian, so if that's not your thing, no big deal. It is John Mark Comer, Live No Lies. It's just a really good book about living life honestly, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I like his writing style. It's paced like a conversation. His books are very easy to read, very easy to digest, so I think it fits in that category. It's not quite like a memoir or anything like that, but it's nonfiction, but I wouldn't put it with the nonfictions I'm about to show you. All right, we're almost done. So close. The next couple books, I don't know. I guess one of them is a self-help book. I don't know. I tend to hate self-help. And this book that I'll show you, it's become one of the most famous books ever. I think it's sold 4 million copies as of this publishing that I have. I did not want to read it. It didn't sound that interesting. But I have some friends that are friends with the author. I picked it up and read it. It's really good. It's nothing profoundly new. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it is the most concise, put together book I've ever read on habits. It is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Many of you probably already read this. It is a massively famous book, came out several years ago. I don't think there's a better concise book on this subject. I love books about psychology, sociology. I love books about the human mind. I've read a lot of that stuff. And I will say, I was shocked that a book so famous and so popular was so interesting to me, in the sense of it's not just a self-help book. Like, it didn't come off like, hey, improve your life today. I'm not a big fan of those books. So I really did like that. I thought it was great. Another book that I really loved, and I want to get into this author. It's not a fair first read for this person. He is the chief editor, I believe, or a co-founder of The Wire magazine, Kevin Kelly. This is excellent advice for living, wisdom I wish I'd known earlier. You can read this in like 2 hours. It's essentially quotes. Yeah, it's just like quotes like that. And I want to buy every young person I know this book, and every old person. Like, it's phenomenal. It's just a really wonderful book that you read. You find yourself circling quotes. You find yourself thinking about your past, your future, truths, things you believe that you shouldn't, things that you forgot that you should be doing. It is really phenomenal. One of his birthdays, as he's gotten much older, he just started collecting advice for his kids, and it's a great book. It's probably, out of everything that I've shown you, it's the best gift that I would say of all this. If you wanted to buy 10 of these and give them away to people, it's a like home run for sure. I read almost nothing to do with music, which is wild. My library has a ton of music books, everything from band biographies to music history that I wanted to read, but I read none of it this year. I was finishing my own book, which I'll show you later in the video, and I just didn't read anything directly related to what I was finishing and writing, and I don't know why that is. I think it worked really well, and I have zero regrets. But the one thing I did read and I really loved, because one of the writers came to our art house, my wife and I's nonprofit art community center that we started, and did a clinic. It is String Theories by Adam Levy and Ethan Sherman. Both Adam and Ethan are amazing. I've spent some time with them over the years. This is a really wonderful book for guitarists. I think it's one of the best gifts you could possibly give a guitarist that reads. It's full of just wisdom, challenges, reflections, and tips from these two guys. I've never seen a book quite like it. I think it's phenomenal. I have a stack of them. I give them away all the time to local guitarists and people that I think it could be helpful to. So don't sleep on this one. So I do own a business, jhspedals.com, if you're not aware of that. And I do love business. I love marketing. I love all of that stuff. I love improving and learning. And so I typically do read some form of business book and some form of marketing books all the time. I like concepts. I like how the mind works. I like the psychology of business. I like all that stuff. So these three books were the best in that category that I read all year. The first is a book I'd never heard of, stumbled upon. It is The Illusion of Choice. This book is all about biases. So it is 16 and a half psychological biases that influence what we buy. As a consumer, this book is amazing. And as a person who markets and sells things, it is amazing as well. So if you have a business, if you're an entrepreneur, understanding the human mind, why we buy things we buy, why do we like things we like, why do we share with other people certain things and not other things. This book is really good, really easy to read, and I'll probably check out some of his other work. Next up is the best marketing book I think you could possibly buy, period, at this point. It's by Seth Godin, one of my all-time favorite thinkers and writers in the spaces of selling, marketing, and I've shared books of his on this channel. It's almost like all of his thoughts on marketing over the years boiled down into one concise book that's pretty easy to read. It is called This is Marketing. You can't be seen until you learn to see. If you want to get into understanding marketing, if you want to be a better salesperson, if you want to be more helpful to customers, if you want to build a business that's not selfish, a business that's looking properly to what consumers want, what people actually want, and if you want to understand how you can be the most helpful to the world instead of just making and selling things that nobody cares about, this book is really, really good. I've read a lot of marketing books. This would be my top pick for most any one of you. And lastly is a book by Doug Tatum. It is called No Man's Land. This is truly about business when growing companies fail. One thing I've experienced with my company is we're getting near the 50 employee mark, and we're getting into numbers and needs that we've never seen, and there are these places called no man's lands. I've been through a few as a smaller company, but essentially there are places in business you get to it, you hit the ceiling, and you pretty much die if you don't move on. You either go backwards or you get through that ceiling. And this is a really helpful book about that language, how to think about the problem that you're facing, how to get out of no man's land, because no man's land will kill you. It's essentially a business desert. And what's crazy is no man's lands exist for companies making a lot of money that are seemingly successful. But this lays out a really wonderful picture of that. This was a really helpful book this year because we've even gone through some restructure in my company and got some coaching, and that book was excellent. I told you this wasn't for the faint of heart, and it wasn't going to be one of those brief little summaries. So if you're still with me, congratulations. I am actually going to wrap up here. I have 5 more books, and I would just say these are nonfiction. These are like classic nonfiction, some type of interest broken down professionally. I know there's been other nonfictions, obviously, but these are classics. These are about a subject or some interest, and I really enjoyed them. The first one is 100 Things We've Lost to the Internet by Pamela Paul. This book was just fun. It's just full of little short chapters. For instance, we've lost civility to the internet. We have lost receptionists. I'll show you one more. We have lost old tech. She just goes through these lists of things that the internet did away with. And for someone my age, it was really good. A lot of nostalgia. Made you really think. Made you wonder if some of that should come back. Can't recommend it enough. This book, I'm on the final chapter, and it's already a top book this year. I would put this in the top 5 books I read this year. It is draft number 4 by John McPhee on the writing process. So I've never read anything like this. It's obviously a book about writing. I've read a lot of books about how to write by writers. They typically feel like a memoir in most cases. I think of like Anne Lamont's Bird by Bird, classic, but this is so different. I feel like I'm reading a clever book and having to figure out the plot line on how he's explaining how to write. And it's really good, really captivating. Like, it's an actual page turner, which is so weird for this genre. I don't know much about him, but I know he's renowned. I know he has done a lot of work over the years, but that book is awesome. This is a classic economics book. I always have to read something every year that's economics. Tim Harford's one of my favorite writers. I've brought him up on the channel before. The Undercover Economist. This is his most famous book. This is economics for normal people, and it sheds light on really interesting and fascinating concepts about economics. And I recommend this so much to everyone. I know that it might not sound exciting, but this kind of book changes your brain. You look at the world differently. It makes you more intelligent, period. Like, it just makes you see what you never saw, and that is intelligence. And he does such a wonderful job. I would say it's a must read. My stack's getting wobbly. Don't fall. All right. I reread this book because I was reading all of those prophetic fictions about the future. And then I remembered Neil Postman. My gosh, this book. Technopoly. This is a book that made me want to be a writer. I owe a lot to this book. It's basically Neil Postman, decades and decades ago, talking about how technology never ends up doing what it was invented to do. All the new tech goes some other direction, and it's a sociology book. It's a book about humanity. It's a book about tech. It's a book about creativity. My second read through, maybe third read through. If you haven't read Technopoly, buy 10 copies immediately. 10 copies minimum. All right. And the last book I'll show you, and then I'll show you a couple other things that I read. This book, my wife made fun of me every time she saw me with it because of the title. That's the most Josh book I've ever seen. This is John Green's Everything is Tuberculosis, The History and Persistence of Our Deadliest Infection. So the Green brothers, they have a really wonderful YouTube channel, and I love both of them. They're phenomenal. This is a guy obsessed with the history of tuberculosis. I've never been interested in tuberculosis. Someone recommended this. I read it, and now I think tuberculosis is the most fascinating thing ever. This is the most wonderful example of how if you're passionate about something and you start talking about it and you know a lot about it, it's fascinating to anyone. If you're a writer, if you're someone who teaches, it's just such a good book because the whole time you're like, I can't believe how fascinating tuberculosis is. And it's such a pointed, beautiful book. That's like all the books. I'll show you a couple more things and then we're going to get out of here because you probably are tired. I wanted to become a person that reads magazines. I always see these like fancy people read magazines. So I got 2 subscriptions this year and I love them both. Number 1 is The Atlantic. I have loved this magazine. They have an app. I'm not an audiobook person, but I really love this app because you can go to writers that you learn that you enjoy, some of their columnists, people that have their essays and things on there. And there are tons of articles, and a lot of them you can hit play and it's like an audiobook. So you can do these 5 to 15 minute or 30-minute articles and it reads them to you. I really love The Atlantic. I'm a big fan. I've learned so much from taking world news from this type of writing. I do not like the news. I'm not a fan of any press. It's all annoying to me. But it was nice to read published, thoughtful media, current events that has some sort of filter, some sort of accountability in it, meaning that it has to be edited, it has to be thoughtful, it has to be put into print. And I like those barriers to information, because when we're on the internet and you just see like blah, 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 blah happened. It's did it. So I'm not saying everything in The Atlantic is wonderful and that I agree with it all, but I am saying that I have loved this magazine. The other one that I got, I was in a doctor's office and they had the Smithsonian, and so good. So good. Smithsonian. I've loved both of these magazines. They're wonderful, wonderful. That's it. I think I'm done. It's a lot. It's a lot, y'all. Thanks for hanging with me. You know, this isn't for the faint of heart, and I really appreciate you. Also, I finished my first book ever. It is called Made on Earth for Rising Stars, The Story of Electroharmonics. It's a 500-page nonfiction biography about the creative work of one of America's greatest musical companies. I'm so excited about it. It's published by Third Man, which is Jack White. It's his publishing company. There's a link in the description. Right now, there are pre-sales, and those pre-sales are doing really well, but I need to keep going because it tells the distributor and the publisher that people like you are serious about books like this that I have just finished, and I have other books that I want to do. So please consider going and grabbing that book. It's a book about creativity. It's a book about making things. It's a book about honoring people who invented stuff who never got the attention they deserved. It's full of amazing photographs, lost artifacts. If you love Ken Burns, if you love Antiques Roadshow, if you love old cool stuff that's really wild and unbelievable, and you love history, you're going to like this book. So every pre-order really matters and is really helpful. That's it. Here's to 2026. I have so many books I want to read. I should just quit my job. We should all quit our jobs and just read. If you want to do that, let me know in the comments. We can get like a Discord together. We won't have any money to pay for the phone or the computer to get on the Discord, but we at least could read, and maybe we could mail each other letters with stamps. 2026 goals. Bye, y'all.